Lieutenant Marcus Webb had been stationed at Forward Base Serenity for 8 months, and in that time he had discovered 3 important truths about interstellar warfare. First, space was incredibly boring. Second, whoever named this dump Serenity had a twisted sense of humor. And third, nobody tells you anything until it's already a problem. Case in point, the mysterious Facility 7. Marcus had been assigned to guard Facility 7 since day 1. The official briefing called it a strategic resource depot, critical to the war effort. High security clearance required. Do not ask questions. That last part should have been his first clue, but Marcus had learned long ago that asking questions in the military only got you assigned to worse jobs. So for 8 months, Marcus guarded the perimeter, filed his reports, and tried not to think about how his posting to the most important facility in the sector involved absolutely zero combat, zero excitement, and zero explanation for why the building made weird squeaking noises at 2 in the afternoon every single day. Today, the squeaking was particularly loud. Marcus was doing his perimeter check when he heard something that definitely was not supposed to come from a strategic resource depot. It sounded like a combination of a car alarm, a wounded cat, and someone losing an argument with a blender. He checked his scanner. No threats, no anomalies. Just that god-awful noise getting louder. His comm unit crackled to life. "Webb, get inside, we have a situation." Marcus jogged toward the entrance, weapon ready, expecting insurgents or saboteurs, or literally anything that would justify 8 months of mind-numbing guard duty. What he got instead was a 40-something woman in cargo pants, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed, and an expression that suggested she had seen everything the universe could throw at her and was not impressed. "You're Webb?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, what's the situation?" "The situation is that Blorko ate 3 packs of sugar-free gummy bears and now he won't stop screaming." She stepped aside. "Welcome to Facility 7. Try not to freak out." Marcus walked through the door and his brain immediately tried to file a complaint with his eyeballs. The Strategic Resource Depot was a daycare center. Not metaphorically. Actually a daycare center. There were colorful foam mats on the floor, a play structure that looked like it was designed by someone who had never seen human safety regulations. Educational posters on the walls showing various alien anatomies with helpful labels like pointy bits and do not touch. And children. Dozens of them. Alien children. Running, crawling, floating, and in one case, phasing partially through a table while giggling uncontrollably. "What?" Marcus said eloquently. "Yeah, that's the usual reaction." The woman extended her hand. "Priya Kapoor, facility manager. You've been guarding us for 8 months. Figured it was time you knew what you were actually protecting." Marcus shook her hand automatically, still staring at a small purple creature that appeared to be eating crayons. "This is a daycare. Galactic Childcare Facility 7, technically, but yes. Daycare." Priya walked past him toward the crayon eater, casually confiscating the box. "We run 32 facilities across this sector. You're looking at approximately 47 children from 18 different species, ranging in age from 6 months to 8 years in standard development cycles." "But the war," Marcus said because his brain was still catching up. "We're in the middle of a war zone. The Kryn Empire and the Vexlar Consortium have been trying to kill each other for 5 years. "Yup." Priya deposited the crayon box on a high shelf. "Turns out both sides still need someone to watch their kids while they're busy with all that mutual destruction. That's where we come in." Marcus felt like he'd been hit by a shuttle. "Both sides? We're babysitting for both sides?" "Welcome to the reason you have high security clearance." Priya gestured around the room. "Half these kids are Kryn, half are Vexlar. Neither side knows the other is using our services. And before you ask, no, we don't get them mixed up. We're professionals." A small reptilian child ran past, chasing a floating blob of protoplasm. Both were laughing. "How is this even possible?" Marcus asked. Priya sighed, the sigh of someone who had explained this many times before. 3 years ago, both the Kryn and the Vexlar independently realized they had a problem. They were expanding the war, but they couldn't take their offspring into combat zones. Their own species' care facilities couldn't handle the unique needs of their young during wartime. So they went looking for a neutral third party. And they found humans. Turns out we're the only species in the known galaxy that's collectively insane enough to handle childcare for creatures we didn't evolve with. Something about our adaptability, or our tolerance for chaos. The xenobiologists are still arguing about it. Priya grabbed a floating toy before it hit Marcus in the face. "Point is, we can feed them, keep them safe, teach them basic skills, and most importantly, keep them alive. Nobody else can make that claim across multiple species." Marcus watched a Kryn hatchling, scales glittering in the light, carefully stack blocks with a Vexlar larva whose skin shifted colors with apparent delight. And neither side knows their enemy's children are here. Correct, which is why you're going to keep guarding this place and not tell anyone what you just learned. Priya fixed him with a look that suggested she had ways of making people comply that didn't involve weapons. Because if either side finds out, this stops being the safest place in the sector, and starts being the most strategic target. Understood? The screaming from earlier had stopped. Marcus could hear children playing, laughing, making the universal sounds of kids being kids, regardless of how many limbs or heads they had. Understood, Marcus said, but I have one question. Just one? Why is it called Facility 7 if there are 32 of them? Priya smiled for the first time. Because calling it the Galactic Daycare Center makes people ask too many questions. Facility 7 sounds boring. Strategic. Nobody investigates boring. She turned toward the chaos. Now come on, since you finally know what we do here, you might as well make yourself useful. Nap time is in 20 minutes and we're short-staffed. Marcus Webb, trained soldier, decorated combat veteran, licensed to operate 17 types of military hardware, followed Priya into a room full of alien children and wondered how his life had gotten so weird. A small creature with too many eyes looked up at him and chirped hopefully. That's Pip, Priya said. He's asking if you know any good stories. Fair warning, he phases through walls when he sneezes, so maybe skip the funny parts. Marcus looked at Pip. Pip looked at Marcus. Sure, Marcus said, because what else was he going to say? I know some stories. This was going to be a long deployment. Marcus learned more about interstellar biology in his first hour inside Facility 7 than in his entire military career. Specifically, he learned that evolution had a sick sense of humor, and that humor was currently making his life very difficult. Pip, the Kryn hatchling who'd asked for a story, was approximately 3 feet tall, with iridescent blue scales and 6 eyes arranged in a way that made Marcus uncomfortable. The phasing through walls when sneezing thing turned out to be not a joke. Marcus was halfway through a story about Earth dogs when Pip sneezed, his entire body flickered like a bad hologram, and suddenly Marcus was talking to empty air while Pip giggled from inside the wall. Pip, we talked about this, Priya called from across the room, not even looking up from the tablet she was reviewing. Solid matter only during story time. Pip phased back through, looking appropriately chastised for exactly 3 seconds before crawling into Marcus's lap. Does he control it? Marcus asked, trying not to move too suddenly. Eventually they all learn control. Right now, strong emotions trigger it. Sneezing, laughing, crying. The usual. Priya finally looked up. Also fear, so try not to scare him or he'll phase into the floor and we'll spend an hour coaxing him back up. That seems like a significant design flaw. Take it up with Kryn evolution, we just work here. The purple crane eater from earlier waddled over. Up close, Marcus could see it was some kind of larva, roughly cylindrical, with stubby appendages and skin that glistened with moisture. It looked up at Marcus with what might have been eyes or might have been random dimples. Hard to tell. That's Blorko, Priya said. Vexlar, do not under any circumstances make sudden movements around him. 2. Why not? As if on cue, another child ran past, shouting. Blorko startled. A clear, viscous fluid immediately began seeping from his skin. Where it hit the foam mat, the material sizzled and dissolved. That's why, Priya said, already moving with a spray bottle and a cloth. Anxiety response, secretes a mild acid, ruins everything it touches but won't actually hurt you unless you bathe in it. She sprayed Blorko with something that neutralized the acid and wiped him down. You're okay, buddy. Just loud noises. We're working on it. Blorko made a sound like a sad trombone. Marcus stared at the smoking hole in the mat. This is insane. It's Tuesday. Priya disposed of the cloth in a specialized bin. You haven't even met the fun ones yet. Before Marcus could ask what constituted fun in this context, a woman in tactical gear strode into the room carrying a crate of juice boxes like it was ammunition. She had dark skin, close-cropped hair, and the expression of someone who had seen combat and found it less stressful than her current assignment. Priya, we're out of the purple juice. Again, she set the crate down with the precision of a military operation. Also, someone taught the Zentari twins how to harmonize, and now they keep shattering the windows in the East Wing. The purple juice shipment got delayed because of fleet movements near the supply route, Priya said. We'll have to substitute with the blue until Thursday, and the Zentari twins are tone-deaf, Rita. They're not shattering windows on purpose. It doesn't matter if it's on purpose. I've replaced 17 windows this month. Rita finally noticed Marcus. Oh, good. Fresh meat. You the perimeter guy? Lieutenant Marcus Webb. He stood, dislodging Pip, who immediately phased halfway into his boot. And yes, Sergeant Rita Okonkwo, head of security, logistics coordinator, and professional cat herder. She shook his hand with a grip that suggested she could bend metal if she wanted to. Fair warning, this job is harder than actual combat. In combat, people are trying to kill you, which is straightforward. Here, they're trying to die accidentally, which requires constant vigilance and the patience of a saint. How did you end up here? Marcus asked. Rita laughed. It was not a happy sound. I asked too many questions about why we were guarding a strategic resource depot with no visible resources. Command decided I'd earned the right to know. Now I spend my days managing juice box inventory and explaining to High Command why our supply requisitions include 17 different types of formula and industrial strength stain remover. She's being modest, Priyat added. Rita runs the tightest ship in the fleet. Every child here has a customized care plan, dietary requirements cross-referenced with 18 different biological systems, and a safety protocol that's been revised 47 times. 48, Rita corrected. We added the no harmonizing near glass rule yesterday. Marcus extracted his boot from Pip, who had fully committed to occupying the same space as footwear. How did this even start? I mean, how did humanity end up being the galaxy's babysitter? Priya and Rita exchanged a look. You want the official version or the real version? Priya asked. Real version. 6 years ago, a Kryn diplomatic vessel had an emergency near Earth. They had 3 hatchlings on board and needed someone to watch them for 48 hours while they handled the crisis. Priya sat down on a foam block, clearly settling in for a story. Every other species they asked said no. Kryn young are difficult. They phase, they bite, they have specific temperature requirements, but humans said sure, why not? Stuck them with a daycare center in Singapore. And they didn't die, Rita continued, which apparently was shocking. Kryn expected at least 1 casualty. Instead, all 3 hatchlings came back healthy, happy, and speaking rudimentary English. The Kryn were impressed. Word spread. Other species started asking if humans could watch their kids too. Priya gestured around the room. Turns out, humans have this weird ability to just figure it out. We're adaptable. We can eat almost anything, survive in varied conditions, and we have this bizarre instinct to protect small, helpless creatures, even when they're not our own species. Also, we're cheap, Rita added. Compared to what most species charge for specialized care, humans work for reasonable rates. And actually enjoy the job. Supply and demand. Marcus watched Pip and Blorko, who had somehow ended up playing together with a set of blocks. Pip would stack them. Blorko would accidentally dissolve one with anxiety acid. Both would laugh. Repeat. Neither side knows the other is using human services? Marcus asked. Correct, Priya said. The Kryn think we only watch Kryn young. The Vexler think we only watch Vexlar larvae. We've been very careful to maintain that illusion. Separate drop-off times, different contact protocols, encrypted communication channels for each client. What happens if they find out? Rita's expression went dark. Best case scenario, they pull their kids immediately and we lose the contracts. Worst case, they decide this facility is a strategic target and we become collateral damage in a war that's not even ours. Which is why you're going to help us maintain operational security, Priya said. And why you're now part of the facility staff. Congratulations on your promotion to childcare specialist. I didn't agree to that. You walked through the door, that's agreement enough. Priya stood. Besides, what are you going to do? Tell Command you don't want to protect children? That'll look great on your record. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She had a point. Pip sneezed again, phased through the floor, and started crying. Blorko tried to comfort him, but got anxious, which meant acid, which meant Priya was already moving with the spray bottle. Rita checked her tablet and announced nap time in 10 minutes, with the authority of a fleet admiral. Marcus looked around at the chaos, the alien children, the insanity of it all. I need a drink, he said. We all do, Rita replied, but not until after nap time. Those are the rules. Pip emerged from the floor, still sniffling. He looked at Marcus with all 6 eyes and reached up with stubby arms. Marcus sighed and picked him up. This was definitely going to be a long deployment. Marcus had been working at Facility 7 for 3 weeks when the universe decided to test his blood pressure. It started like any other morning. Rita was doing inventory on juice boxes with the intensity of someone planning a military campaign. Priya was mediating a dispute between two Kryn hatchlings over who got to play with the shiny rock. Blorko had already dissolved one toy and was feeling guilty about it, which meant more acid, which meant Marcus was on neutralization duty. He'd gotten pretty good with the spray bottle. "Webb, you're getting better at this," Rita said, watching him clean up Blorko's latest anxiety incident. "Last week you flinched every time. Now you're practically zen about it." "I've accepted that nothing makes sense anymore," Marcus replied, wiping down a foam block. "It's very liberating." That's when Priya's tablet chimed. She looked at it. Her face went pale. "Rita, we have a problem." Rita looked up from her juicebox spreadsheet with the expression of someone who knew that problems in this job ranged from annoying to catastrophic with no middle ground. "What kind of problem?" "Inspection. Kryn Command. Commander Thrace himself. Unannounced. ETA 30 minutes. Rita's tactical brain immediately went into overdrive. "Okay, not ideal but manageable. We move all the Vexler kids to the East Wing, lock the corridor, tell Thrace the section's undergoing renovations." Priya's tablet chimed again. She looked at it. Her face went from pale to transparent. "Also inspection. Vexler Corporate, Executive Shimmicks, also unannounced, also ETA 30 minutes. The room went very quiet except for the sound of children playing, blissfully unaware that reality was about to become complicated. Marcus processed this information. Both sides, same time, unannounced. "Yes. That's not a coincidence." "No, it's not," Priya said, already moving. "Rita, Emergency Protocol 7. Webb, you're about to learn why we have Emergency Protocol 7. The next 25 minutes were the most organized chaos Marcus had ever experienced, and he'd been in actual combat. Rita divided the children with surgical precision. Kryn kids to the West Wing, Vexlar larvae to the East Wing. The central area became a carefully staged neutral zone that could plausibly belong to either group. Toys were color-coded and separated. Educational posters were swapped out for species-specific materials. Two completely different sets of documentation materialized on Priya's tablet. "What about the mixed species?" Marcus asked, pointing at a small furry creature that was definitely neither Kryn nor Vexlar. "Neutral species go in storage closet B with entertainment and snacks," Rita said, already herding three confused children toward a surprisingly spacious closet that had apparently been designed for exactly this purpose. "We tell both sides we're at reduced capacity today." Marcus helped move children, trying not to think about how this was definitely not in his job description. Pip kept phasing through walls in excitement, which didn't help. Blorko got stressed and dissolved part of a bookshelf, which helped even less. "Peep, solid matter only," Priya called, while simultaneously updating fake attendance records. "Blorko, breathing exercises, remember?" "This is insane," Marcus said, carrying a stack of Vexler-specific learning materials to the East Wing. "This is Thursday," Rita corrected, speed-walking past him with an armful of Kryn temperature regulation equipment. They finished with 3 minutes to spare. The facility was now two completely separate operations, divided by a hastily locked corridor door and several strategically placed renovation-in-progress signs that Rita had apparently kept on hand for exactly this scenario. Priya checked her appearance, smoothed her hair, and transformed from harried daycare manager to consummate professional in about 5 seconds. "Rita, you take the East Wing with Shimmicks. Webb, you're with me on the West Wing with Thrace. Standard protocol. Be boring, show compliance, answer questions with more paperwork, and for the love of everything, keep them separated." "What if they try to access the other wing?" Marcus asked. "Improvise. Lie. Fake a structural emergency if you have to. Just keep them apart," Priya's tablet chimed. "They're here. Showtime." Commander Thrace was exactly what Marcus expected from a Kryn military leader. 7 feet tall, scales like armor plating, eyes that had seen too much combat, and a voice that could strip paint. He arrived with 2 guards and an expression that suggested he trusted nothing and no one. "Manager Kapoor," Thrace rumbled. "Unannounced inspection. Security protocol demands verification of service quality." "Of course, Commander." Priya's smile was professional and utterly unruffled. "We're always happy to demonstrate our commitment to Kryn hatchling care. If you'll follow me to the West Wing." Marcus followed, trying to look like professional security and not like someone actively hiding half the facility's occupants. The West Wing looked perfect. Kryn hatchlings playing with Kryn-appropriate toys, temperature controls set to Kryn specifications, educational materials in Kryn script. Thrace inspected everything with the thoroughness of someone checking for explosives. He questioned temperature variance. He examined dietary logs. He watched the hatchlings with an intensity that suggested he was calculating structural weaknesses. Then Pip sneezed. Pip phased through a wall. The wall that separated the West Wing from the central corridor. The corridor that was supposed to be under renovation. The corridor that had a door to the East Wing. Pip emerged on the other side, giggled, and started to wander toward the East Wing before Marcus moved faster than he'd ever moved in his life, scooped up Pip through the wall gap before Thrace could see the open corridor, and yanked him back. Phasing incident, Marcus said quickly, holding a confused Pip. Common at this age, everything's under control. Thrace stared at the wall, at Marcus, at Pip. The partition appears compromised, Thrace observed. Scheduled repair, Priya said without missing a beat. Part of the East Wing renovations. We're reinforcing all walls with phase-resistant materials. Safety upgrade. Thrace accepted this with a grunt. Meanwhile, on the other side of the facility, Rita was having her own adventure with Executive Shimix, a Vexlar who looked like someone had taken a squid, given it a business degree, and taught it to radiate disappointment. Shimix examined everything with the cold efficiency of a corporate audit. These anxiety reduction protocols seem insufficient, Shimix said, tentacles gesturing at a chart. Blorko's stress incidents have increased 12%. Temporary spike due to developmental phase, Rita replied, showing carefully curated data. Well within normal parameters, we're monitoring closely. Shimix's skin shifted to a color that probably meant skepticism in Vexlar body language. I want to see the full facility layout. Verify space allocation matches our contract. Rita's heart rate probably doubled, but her expression didn't change. Of course. However, the West Wing is currently undergoing safety upgrades. Hazardous materials in use. Corporate liability protocols prohibit unauthorized access during construction. I am authorized. You're authorized for the East Wing. The West Wing falls under separate jurisdiction due to the renovation contract. Rita pulled up documents that may or may not have been completely fabricated. Insurance protocols, very boring, very legally binding. Shimix's tentacles twitched with irritation but accepted the explanation. Back in the West Wing, Thrace was wrapping up his inspection when they heard it. A sound from the East Wing. A very specific sound that Kryn and Vexlar shared despite being mortal enemies. The sound of a child crying. Not just any child. Blorko, having a full anxiety meltdown, which meant acid, which meant Rita frantically neutralizing while trying to keep Shimix calm, which meant the sound was carrying through the ventilation system. Thrace's head turned. Is there another facility wing? Priya didn't hesitate. Waste processing. Industrial recycling system. Very loud. Very smelly. Not relevant to hatchling care. Marcus added, I can show you the schematics if you'd like, sir. They're very detailed. Approximately 40 pages of plumbing specifications. The magic words. Nothing makes people lose interest faster than offering detailed plumbing documentation. Thrace declined. In the East Wing, Shimix heard something too. A sound from the West Wing. Pip, laughing at something, his voice carrying through the same ventilation system. What is that sound? Shimix demanded. Air circulation system, Rita said. Needs maintenance. Been meaning to file a work order. Bureaucracy, you know how it is. Shimix's skin color suggested he absolutely did know how it was, and he hated it. Both inspections were wrapping up. Both leaders were heading toward the exit. The central area was neutral enough that both could theoretically pass through it, but if they were there at the same time, if they saw each other, if they realized what was actually happening. Priya checked her tablet, saw Shimix's location, and made a command decision. Commander Thrace, before you go, we have new hatchling artwork to show you. This way, please. She steered him toward a display in the opposite direction from the exit. Rita, seeing Priya's move, understood immediately. Executive Shimix, final compliance documents require your signature just through here. She guided him toward her office, also away from the main exit. They would have to stagger the departures, keep them separated by minutes, not meters. It almost worked. It would have worked. Except Blorko, still upset, got loose from the East Wing, and Pip, excited by the day's chaos, phased through a wall into the central area. Both children reached the central corridor at the same time. Both started playing together, as they'd been doing for weeks. And both Thrace and Shimix, leaving their respective wings at that exact moment, entered the central area and saw them. Saw their children, playing together. The universe held its breath. Marcus reached for his sidearm, knowing it was useless. Priya and Rita moved to place themselves between the leaders and the children, also knowing it was useless. Commander Thrace and Executive Shemix locked eyes across a room full of foam mats and educational toys, and Marcus realized that 8 months of boring guard duty had been leading to this exact moment, when everything would either work out or explode spectacularly. "Well," Priya said into the silence, "this is awkward." The silence lasted approximately 5 seconds, which was 4 seconds longer than Marcus expected, before someone started shooting. Nobody started shooting. Instead, Commander Thrace and Executive Shemix just stared at each other, with the kind of recognition that comes from years of trying to kill someone across a battlefield. Then they looked at their children, then back at each other, then at Priya, who had clearly decided her best strategy was to stand very still and radiate professionalism. "You watch Vexlar larvae," Thrace said slowly. "You use human services," Shemix replied, tentacles coiling in what was definitely anger. "Everyone stay calm," Priya said, in the voice of someone who had managed worse situations, though Marcus couldn't imagine what those situations might have been. "There's a reasonable explanation." "The explanation," Thrace growled, "is that you've been harboring enemy combatants." "The explanation," Shemix corrected, skin flashing angry red, "is that you've been using the same childcare service as the Kryn Empire, our mortal enemies. Your mortal enemies are also using it, which makes you equally compromised. We contacted them first." "Irrelevant." Marcus watched this argument unfold while keeping one eye on the children, who had stopped playing and were now watching the adults with the universal expression of kids who knew they'd accidentally caused trouble, but weren't sure how yet. Rita appeared from the east wing, assessed the situation with one glance, and muttered something that was probably a prayer or a curse. Hard to tell. "Sirs," Rita said, stepping forward with the authority of someone who'd dealt with difficult officers before. "Before this escalates, perhaps we should discuss this somewhere other than in front of the children." "The children are the point," Shemix said, but his tone had shifted slightly, less immediately hostile, more strategically hostile. "The children are innocent," Thrace added, which was possibly the first thing both leaders had agreed on in 5 years of warfare. Rhea seized the opening. "Exactly, the children are innocent, which is why we've been providing neutral professional care to both species without prejudice or political affiliation. We're not harboring anyone, we're doing our job." "Your job is a security breach," Thrace said. "Your job is a conflict of interest," Shemix added. "Our job," Rita cut in, "is keeping kids alive while their parents fight a war. We've done that job successfully for 3 years. 0 casualties. 0 incidents. Full compliance with both Kryn and Vexlar care protocols. You want to be mad about something? Be mad that nobody told you. Don't be mad that your kids are safe." Thrace's comm unit chirped. He glanced at it. His expression shifted from angry to tactically concerned. "My fleet is approaching this sector. They expect a status report." Shemix's device made a similar sound. "Vexlar corporate forces are en route. This location was supposed to be the staging ground for our final offensive." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Final offensive?" "The war's endgame," Thrace confirmed. "This sector, today. Winner takes all." "Which means this facility is about to be ground zero," Shemix added with the kind of calm that suggested he'd accepted the math. "No," Priya said flatly. "Absolutely not. You are not bringing a space battle to my daycare." "It's not your daycare," Thrace pointed out. "It's a military staging area that happens to contain a daycare." "Then unstage it," Rita snapped. "Call off your fleets. Tell them there's been a complication." "I can't call off an entire military operation because of a childcare facility," Thrace said. "I don't have the authority to redirect corporate forces," Shemix agreed. They were still arguing when nap time arrived. Because children don't care about military standoffs or political complications. Nap time is nap time, and the universe bends to that schedule. Pip started rubbing his eyes. Blorko made a tired trombone sound. 3 other children from the neutral species closet, apparently sensing the conflict had paused, emerged and immediately started the pre-nap routine of demanding snacks and bathroom breaks. Rita, operating on pure professional instinct, started herding children towards sleeping mats. "Nap time, everyone, right now." "We're in the middle of a crisis," Shemix protested. "The crisis can wait 30 minutes, Rita said, already distributing blankets. "You want to have a standoff? Fine, do it quietly. These kids need sleep or they'll be absolute monsters when they wake up, and trust me, you don't want that." Marcus watched in stunned silence as Rita essentially put an interstellar conflict on pause for nap time. Even more stunning was that both military leaders just accepted it. probably because neither knew how to argue with someone who had that much command presence. Priya guided children to their designated spots. Pip phased halfway into his mat, which apparently was comfortable for him. Blorko curled up with a blanket that had been treated with acid-resistant coating. Other children settled down with the practiced ease of kids who'd done this 1,000 times. "Read them a story," Priya said to Marcus. "The usual one." "We're seriously doing story time right now?" "We're seriously doing story time right now. Routine is important." So Marcus sat down on a foam block, surrounded by alien children, with 2 military leaders watching him like he'd lost his mind, and started reading a story about a talking earth animal that went on adventures. His voice was calm, steady, trained, from weeks of doing this exact thing. The children settled, their breathing evened out. Pip stopped phasing. Blorko's anxiety levels dropped. Within 10 minutes, most of them were asleep. Thrace and Shimmick stood at opposite ends of the room, watching. "How long have they been doing this?" Thrace asked quietly. "The children?" 3 years, some of them," Priya answered. "Playing together, learning together. They don't know your enemies. To them, they're just kids in the same facility." Shimmick's tentacles had stopped coiling. "Blorko never mentioned Kryn hatchlings." "Pip talks about his friends all the time," Thrace admitted. "Never specified species. I assumed they were all Kryn." "Funny how that works," Rita said. "Kids don't really care about interstellar politics. They care about who shares toys and who's fun at playtime." Marcus finished the story. The room was quiet except for the sound of children sleeping. Peaceful, completely at odds with the fact that 2 fleets were about to turn this sector into a battlefield. "My forces will arrive in 40 minutes, Thrace said. "Ours in 35, Shimmick replied. They looked at each other, at the sleeping children, at the humans who'd somehow been taking care of both species without anyone knowing. "This doesn't change anything," Thrace said, but he didn't sound convinced. "The war continues," Shimmick agreed, but his color had shifted to something that might have been doubt. Priya crossed her arms. "So you're going to fight a space battle over a building full of sleeping children. Both of your children, that's the plan?" Neither leader answered. "Because, I've got to tell you," Rita added, "that's going to look really bad in the history books. War ended when both sides accidentally bombed their own kids because they were too proud to call a timeout. Not a great legacy." The silence stretched. Outside, space prepared for war. Inside, children dreamed peaceful dreams. Marcus stood up from his foam block. "For what it's worth, sirs, I've been watching these kids for weeks now. They get along fine. No species rivalry, no inherited hatred. They just exist together like it's the most natural thing in the universe." He gestured at the sleeping forms. "Maybe they're smarter than we are." Thrace and Shimmick exchanged another look, the kind that carried years of conflict, thousands of casualties, and the weight of decisions that couldn't be unmade. And in 35 minutes, their fleets would arrive, expecting a battle. Nobody moved for a full minute. Then Blorko made a sound in his sleep, and Shimmick instinctively moved toward him before stopping himself, remembering he was supposed to be maintaining hostile military posture. Thrace noticed. "How often do you visit?" "Monthly," Shimmick admitted. "Contract requires periodic quality verification." "I come every 6 weeks. Command protocols." Thrace's scales shifted in a way that might have been embarrassment. "He grew 2 inches since last time. I missed it." "Blorko learned to count to 20 in 3 languages, Shimmick said quietly. His teacher sent a notification. "I was in a board meeting about resource allocation for the war effort." Priya, recognizing an opening, moved with the precision of someone who'd been waiting for this exact moment. "You should see their artwork. We keep everything, documentation, very thorough records." She pulled out a tablet, tapped a few times, and turned it toward the leaders. Crude drawings filled the screen, the kind of art that every parent thinks is brilliant and every non-parent thinks is incomprehensible. Pip had drawn what was probably his family, all scales and eyes and colors that shouldn't exist in nature. Next to them, he'd drawn other figures, smaller figures, different shapes. "Those are his friends," Priya said, swiping to the next image. "He drew this last week. That's Blorko, and that's Kree, one of the Zentari twins, and that's what I think is supposed to be Webb, but the proportions are very creative." Thrace stared at the drawing, at his son's artistic representation of friendship that crossed species lines without a second thought. Shimmick's tentacles reached for the tablet. "May I?" Priya handed it over. Shimmick scrolled through Blorko's artwork, more crude drawings, more mixed groups of children. One particularly ambitious piece showed what appeared to be the entire facility, all the kids together, with suns and stars, and the kind of optimism that only children could manage. "He made you do it," Shimmick said. "Here, in the corner, next to a Kryn parrot." "Do we compare notes?" Rita added. "The kids. About their families. Pip told Blorko that his parent is a commander. Blorko told Pip his parent works in corporate operations. They were impressed with each other, thought it sounded important. They have no idea," Thrace said slowly, "that we're enemies." "Why would they?" Priya replied. "We don't teach them that. We teach them colors and numbers and how to share. Species biology, sure, but that's just facts. We don't tell them who to hate. They figured out friendship on their own." Marcus's comm unit chirped. He checked it and his expression went carefully neutral. "Sirs, both fleets are approaching, 20 minutes out. They're requesting confirmation of battle readiness." The peaceful moment shattered against tactical reality. "I have to respond," Thrace said. "As do I," Shimmick agreed. They both reached for their communication devices. Both hesitated. Rita, never one to let an opportunity pass, spoke up. "You know what the kids call this place? Home. Not Facility 7, not Child Care Center. Home. Because most of them have been here longer than they've been with their actual families." She gestured around the room. "You want to know what happens if you fight this battle? Best case, the facility takes minor damage and we evacuate. The kids lose their home, get separated, probably never see their friends again. Worst case, you both know what the worst case is." "The war has to end sometime," Shimmick said, but the conviction in his voice had weakened. "It could end today," Prio said. "Different ending than you planned, but still an ending." "You're suggesting surrender." Thrace's tone was dangerous. "I'm suggesting you both stop being idiots." Priya stepped forward, and somehow a 5'6" human administrator became the most intimidating person in the room. "You've been fighting for 5 years, thousands dead, resources depleted, and for what? This sector? Some strategic advantage that probably won't matter in a decade? Meanwhile, your kids have been quietly proving that Kryn and Vexlar can coexist just fine when you're not teaching them to hate each other." "It's not that simple," Shimmick protested. "It's exactly that simple. You're making it complicated because admitting it's simple means admitting you've been wrong." Rita pulled up something on her tablet. "You want complicated? I run 12 facilities like this one. 12. That's approximately 400 children from both your species, all mixed together, all getting along fine. You're not at war because you have to be. You're at war because you haven't figured out how to stop." Thrace's comm unit chirped again, more urgent this time. "My fleet commanders are demanding orders." "To give them orders," Marcus said. "Just maybe not the orders they're expecting." "You're military," Thrace said to Marcus. "You understand chain of command, duty. I can't just call off an offensive because some children drew pictures." "No, sir, I get it. But I also understand that sometimes the mission changes. Sometimes you get new intelligence that makes the original plan obsolete." Marcus gestured at the sleeping children. "This is new intelligence. Your enemy isn't who you thought they were. They're just another group of people trying to keep their kids safe. Same as you." Shimmick's device was also demanding attention. "Corporate will not accept a unilateral withdrawal. They'll remove me from command and send someone else to finish this." "Then don't make it unilateral," Bria said. "You're both here, you both see the same situation, you both have the same problem. Work together." "Work together," Thrace repeated. "With Vexlar." "With Kryn," Shimmick echoed, sounding equally disturbed by the concept. "You've literally been trusting humans to raise your children," Rita pointed out. "If you can trust us with that, you can trust each other with a conversation." Another chirp. Both leaders looked at their devices with the expression of people who knew they were running out of time. Pip stirred in his sleep, made a small sound, and settled again. Thrace looked at his son, at Blorko sleeping nearby, at the tablet still showing their artwork. "If I order a stand-down without explanation, my commanders will assume I've been compromised. They'll override my authority and attack anyway." "Same with corporate forces," Shimmick said. "They're committed to this offensive. They won't abort without a reason that makes strategic sense." "Then give them a reason," Prio said. "Tell them the truth. Tell them this facility exists. Tell them their children are here, together, and that any battle will put them at risk. That reveals the facility's purpose," Thrice objected. "Compromised operational security." "Operational security is already compromised," Rita said flatly. "You're standing in the same room as your enemy, in a building that's been harboring both your species for 3 years. The secret's out. Question is what you do with that information. Marcus checked his scanner. 15 minutes until fleets arrive. Sirs, whatever you're going to decide it fast. Thrace and Shimix locked eyes again. Years of warfare, generations of hostility, cultural differences that seemed insurmountable, and children sleeping peacefully between them. This is insane, Thrace said. Completely insane, Shimix agreed. If we do this, everything changes. Everything is already changing, we're just acknowledging it. They both raised their communication devices. This better work, Thrace muttered. It won't, Shimix replied, but apparently we're doing it anyway. And two military leaders, standing in a daycare center, surrounded by sleeping children who didn't know they were supposed to be enemies, began drafting the most unlikely peace proposal in galactic history. Priya looked at Rita. Rita looked at Marcus. Did we just accidentally end a war? Marcus asked. We'll find out in about 10 minutes, Rita replied. Outside, the fleets approached. Inside, nap time continued. And somewhere in between, the universe held its breath and waited to see if peace could actually be negotiated over juice boxes and children's artwork. The next 10 minutes proved that nothing in the galaxy could move as slowly as two military leaders trying to draft a joint statement that wouldn't get them both immediately court-martialed. We can't call it a peace treaty, Thrace said, typing something on his device. That implies formal surrender terms. Azriel, agreed. Corporate won't accept treaty language. Call it a tactical reassessment. Shimix's tentacles were moving faster than Marcus had seen, which probably meant stress. My commanders will demand explanation for tactical reassessment. As will mine. We need a reason that's militarily sound but doesn't reveal strategic weakness. They both stopped, looked at the sleeping children, looked at each other. The reason, Priya said quietly, is that continuing the battle endangers non-combatant assets critical to both your civilization's futures. Which is technically true, and sounds much better than, we found out our kids are friends. Thrace typed. Shimix reviewed. They made adjustments with the speed of people who knew they were working against a countdown. Marcus's scanner beeped. 5 minutes. Both fleets are in visual range of each other. They're powering weapons. Not helping Webb, Rita muttered. Just providing situational awareness. Thrace hit send on his device. Stand down order transmitted to Kryn fleet. They'll comply, but they want immediate explanation. Vexler forces acknowledge, Shimix reported. Corporate is demanding emergency session to discuss the order. I'm required to attend virtually in 3 minutes. Tell them you'll attend from here, Priya said. Both of you. Joint session. Show them what we showed you. They'll see we're in the same location, Thrace objected. That's the point. They need to see what you're seeing. What followed was possibly the most surreal military briefing in recorded history. Thrace and Shimix, standing at opposite ends of a daycare center, connected to their respective command structures via holographic projection, trying to explain why they'd called off the war's decisive battle. The Kryn High Command materialized in angry blue light. Multiple commanders, all scales in fury. Commander Thrace, explain this stand down immediately. The Vexlaw corporate board appeared in shimmering green. Tentacles and barely contained rage. Executive Shimix, this decision violates every strategic protocol. Justify or face immediate removal. Both leaders spoke simultaneously. There are children in the combat zone. Both command structures responded simultaneously. Evacuate and resume offensive. We can't, Thrace said. The children are ours, Shimix added. Confused silence from both projections. Priya stepped into view of both holographic feeds. Gentlemen, I'm Manager Kapoor of Galactic Childcare Facility 7. For the past 3 years, we've been providing care services to both Kryn and Vexler families. You're looking at approximately 47 children, roughly half from each species, who have been coexisting peacefully in this facility while you've been trying to kill each other. The silence intensified. Rita joined her, holding up the tablet with children's artwork. They draw pictures together. They play together. They've formed friendships across species lines because nobody told them they weren't supposed to. You want to fight? Fine. But you're fighting over a building full of your own kids. One of the Kryn commanders leaned forward. You're telling me we've been using human childcare services while at war with the Vexlar, who are also using human childcare services. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Priya confirmed. A Vexlar board member's color shifted through several shades of what was probably shock. This is a security breach of unprecedented magnitude. This is the only reason your species have a next generation, Rita countered. We've kept mortality rates at 0 across both populations while you've been busy killing each other. You're welcome, by the way. Marcus watched the projections, saw the calculation happening in real time. Military minds and corporate strategists processing information that didn't fit their worldview. Pip chose that moment to wake up, phase halfway through his sleeping mat, and wander over to Thrace. Papa? He blinked all 6 eyes sleepily. Why are the angry people in the blue light? Thrace froze. Every Kryn commander in the projection could see his son, could see the other children sleeping behind him, could see a Vexler larva curled up on a mat 3 feet away. Pip, Thrace said carefully, these are my commanders. We're having a meeting. Oh. Pip looked at the projection, then at Blorko, who was starting to stir. Is Blorko's papa here too? I'm here, Shimmick said quietly. Blorko made his trombone sound and wobbled toward Shimmick's. The Vexler board watched their executive's offspring approach, watched him interact with a Kryn hatchling in the background, watched their entire strategic framework crumble in real time. We know each other, one of the board members said unnecessarily. They're friends, Priya confirmed, along with approximately 400 other children across our 12 facilities. Your populations have been integrating at the youth level for 3 years. You just didn't know it. A Kryn commander spoke up. This changes the strategic calculus. This changes everything, a Vexlar board member agreed. What followed was the fastest diplomatic negotiation in galactic history, conducted in a daycare center with increasingly awake children as witnesses. Terms were drafted on tablets, ceasefire protocols established, neutral zones designated, all of it happening around naptime schedules and snack distribution. The formal treaty was written on the back of a piece of construction paper because Priya's tablet ran out of battery and nobody wanted to pause negotiations to find a charger. The construction paper had a drawing of a spaceship on the front. Pip had made it last week. It seemed appropriate. Both sides signed it, while Thrace marked it with a claw signature and Shemix applied a tentacle print, close enough for interstellar law. This is the worst peace treaty in history, one of the Kryn commanders observed. It's written on a child's artwork, a Vexlar board member added. It's also legally binding, Rita said, having already transmitted copies to 17 different diplomatic databases. Congratulations, you're at peace. Try not to screw it up. The holographic projections disconnected. The fleets began standing down, powering down weapons, establishing safe distances. The war was over, not with a bang but with crayon drawings, and the realization that both sides had been trusting humans with their most valuable resource while trying to destroy each other. Thrace picked up Pip. This is going to be complicated. Everything worth doing is complicated, Shimix replied, Blorko wrapped in his tentacles. Marcus looked around the facility, at the children waking up from naps, at the humans who'd somehow stumbled into ending a war by just doing their jobs, at the 2 former enemies standing in the same room, holding their children, trying to figure out what came next. So, Marcus said, what now? Priya was already typing on a spare tablet. Now we process the paperwork. Applications are already coming in from 3 other species who heard about the ceasefire. Apparently everyone wants their kids raised by the species that accidentally ended a war. Do we have capacity? Rita asked. We'll make capacity. That's what we do. Marcus looked at his job description. Guard duty at a strategic resource depot. Technically still accurate. The resources were just smaller and stickier than he'd anticipated. I need a drink, he said. We all do, Rita agreed. But not until after dinner service. Those are still the rules. Thrace and Shimix were talking quietly now, working out preliminary details for how their species would interact post-war. Trade agreements drafted between diaper changes. Cultural exchange programs planned around potty training schedules. The universe's worst peace summit was continuing, and would probably continue for months, all happening in a daycare center because apparently that's where peace actually worked. Pip and Blorko had gone back to playing with blocks, building something together. Probably not structurally sound, definitely not following any architectural principles, but built with cooperation and friendship, and all the things adults seem to forget when they got too focused on being right. You know what the really messed up part is, Marcus said to Priya. What's that? This actually makes sense, like more sense than anything else about this war. Kids don't care about politics or territory or who started what, they just want to play. We should have been asking them for advice all along. Priya smiled. Welcome to childcare, Webb, where the real work happens and nobody gives you credit until something goes catastrophically wrong, or catastrophically right. Hard to tell which this is. Both, Rita said. Definitely both. The rest of the day proceeded normally, which meant chaos but manageable chaos. Snacks were distributed. Minor injuries were treated. One Zentari twin tried to harmonize and shattered a window, which Rita had already budgeted for. Just another day at Facility 7, except now with the added complexity of having accidentally ended an interstellar war. Marcus did his evening perimeter check, looking up at the stars where two fleets were establishing peaceful formations instead of battle arrays. He'd joined the military to make a difference. He'd expected combat, strategy, maybe some heroic last stands. He got a daycare center, and somehow ended up part of the team that stopped a war. The universe had a weird sense of humor. Behind him, he heard Priya calling everyone for dinner, heard children laughing, heard Thrace and Shimmick still negotiating, but in calmer tones now, finding common ground. "Hey Webb," Rita called. "You're on cleanup duty after dinner. Welcome to the glamorous world of galactic peacekeeping." Marcus looked at the stars, at the facility, at his completely ridiculous life. "Yeah," he said, "I can live with that." And somewhere in the universe, humanity's reputation shifted from surprisingly adaptable to accidentally competent at diplomacy to the only species crazy enough to babysit everyone else's kids and somehow make it work. The war was over. Nap time was eternal. And Marcus Webb, decorated soldier, trained warrior, defender of strategic resources, went inside to help clean up after dinner. Because apparently that's what saving the galaxy looked like.